Story is for a team of editors producing an entry. This would be ideal for a team assignment or a documentary in which multiple editors contributed significantly to an entry. Stories may be hard or soft in this category. Your submission must include a write-up, and they usually have write-ups explaining how you worked as a team on the edit. Entries may be of any length. And it looks like the first one we're going to start is Texas Freeze.
Sean, is there any particular way that you want these things to be displayed or presented?
Well, because this is a team, do you want to just read the write-up?
Okay.
In what experts dubbed a black swan event, Texas experienced an infrastructure failure of catastrophic proportions. A mass of Arctic air plunged the state into a historic freeze and delivered more snow than it has seen in decades. The combination of icy roads, downed power lines, and strain on the state's electrical grid brought civilization to a miserable standstill, leaving millions without power, heat, and water for weeks. In this portrait of resilience, video journalists Bronte Whitpen and Ana Ramirez document the journey of 3 Texans who had their livelihoods threatened by crop and livestock loss. And while much of the media spotlight was focused on larger cities impacted by the storm, both Whitpen and Ramirez looked to rural communities, those who depend on the land and produce our food. Through cold calling, research, and hours on the road, Whitpen and Ramirez managed to establish 3 sources who sustained considerable damage to their operations. Both Whitpen and Ramirez shot and produced their own sources' stories. They exchanged their hard drives to each other and sifted through dozens of contributed footage files and B-roll. It wasn't until they had their final drafts that they edited together, side by side in an empty newsroom. They showed up, stayed late, and continued to document their stories long after news moved on. The result is a moving depiction of what happens when infrastructure fails, when help is not on the way, and when communities are forced to rebuild. Whitpen and Ramirez, both acting as editor, producer, and videographer, go beyond the obvious to tell this powerful story with empathy and grace.
Not ever pleasant to walk up on a cow that has died. Always wish that you could have done more.
We had a few that during the ice storm, we'd come out in the middle of the night and there were kids already born and they'd been there long enough that their ears were already frozen hard.
The sound of the ice breaking all the tree limbs, the animals doing things that they've never done just to try and stay warm, that was the first moment we realized this was a lot worse than anything we've experienced previously.
When the storm hit, I felt like we had done as much as we could do. After we put feed and hay out that first day, we just kind of sat back and waited for the worst of it to happen. We ended up losing power Monday night. We were probably at about 36 hours all total with no power. No one was exempt. It was just a matter of survival and taking care of our kids and homes, but also our livestock and our animals.
After 51 years of farming on this property, there have been hailstorms, there have been droughts, there have been floods. It's farming, you name it, it's happened here. And we've always recovered and we've always come back. This is our first big natural crisis.
Absolutely frozen solid.
Animals were eating 2 to 4 times as much feed as they normally would to keep themselves warm, but the main concern was drinking water. We had to break the ice in the troughs and hauled water manually for days for these animals. Here you go.
The whole thing was very mentally exhausting just because it never stopped. It was mainly just knowing exactly when new kids hit the ground, because we wanted to get them dried off and cleaned off and fed as quickly as possible and under a heat lamp. If it's laying there soaking wet in 0-degree weather, it just freezes it to death.
12 days without power or water. We're looking at loss in probably 90% of our income for 2 months.
Yeah. Really sad.
At least 2/3 of our field crops are lost completely, and now we just have to get water to the rest of it and hope that we don't lose all of it.
There were a total of 7 cows and a calf lost. It's also calving season. So if we're losing calves and mamas, it's really a double whammy. If we replace those livestock, more than likely it'll come out of our pockets. And for ranching, that's our livelihood.
I'm a 6th-generation cattle rancher. It's what I've always known how to do and wanted to do. It makes it where I'm kind of responsible for whatever happens. I don't know how exactly you prepare for something like this, that it's kind of like preparing for those what they call 100-year floods. You have to be aware of them, but I don't know how to be economical to keep up enough supplies and everything stored just for something that may not happen again in my lifetime.
I think that the extreme nature of what we have been seeing, whether it's rains, cold, or droughts, I noticed that over the years, these things seem to be more and more intense.
The path forward to recovery is a lot of work. It's a lot of hands in the ground, time on the tractor, work.
Nobody forces us to be here. We do this because we love it, it's in us. It's not for the faint of heart. We learn to roll with the punches. There's not a lot of time for sitting and sulking. There's not a lot of time for, crying and trying to figure things out. A lot of times we just jump in and go.
It's that bootstrap mentality. You pull your boots on, you do whatever's in front of you.
We've been tested. We have been challenged. And we've come through it. We're still going through it. But we are professionals and this is what we do. And so no matter what, we're going to get back on track and grow gorgeous, healthy food.
Go ahead and go to the next one.
One year into the coronavirus pandemic, KUT News' multimedia team asked 12 people from across the Austin, Texas area to share their lessons from lockdown. These Central Texans grappled with job losses, canceled gigs, working from home, and life in solitude. But the challenges of 2020 also yielded lessons in creativity, relationships, and perspective.
It's been a time in this weird paradox of extreme joy, but also extreme loneliness.
I'm supposed to be the breadwinner and I'm not the breadwinner. I'm supposed to have the answers and I don't have the answers.
And then you get the map for even COVID vaccinations and realize it's not equitable. Why?
I feel like I'm less connected with my local scene, but strangely enough, I'm more connected to the global scene.
So I feel like this year has really made me who I am.
Grief takes a long time. So you have to find something to be kind of joyful about in between the grieving parts. During this pandemic, one of the things that I learned is that we all have to process this in one way or another, and there's no rules about it. So I just decided to do something. I adjusted part of my fence to be a memorial for people that lost their lives to the COVID pandemic. And then other people really brought things from their loved ones. People that died, like this one. You Are Not Forgotten, Charles Roberts, 1975 to 2020. Is that precious?
When everything got shut down at the beginning of March, I was in a vacuum with no fulfillment, stuck in a 400 square foot shoebox apartment, and this caused me to have to sit in my emotions and my feelings and really reflect on a lot of things that had happened in the past. And things got tough in that period, being alone, and I finally decided that it was time for me to seek out counseling. In the past year, I learned how important it is to prioritize mental health. I feel like the weekly check-in that I have to hold myself accountable has allowed me to really grow as a human being. And then once I did seek out counseling, I was starting to learn about how mindfulness is a helpful way to manage your emotions and thoughts.
I've been in Austin a very long time, since I was a kid, and what the pandemic and last year really showed me was something I already knew, which was there's a disparity in this city. But the disparity is even greater than I thought and even deeper than I thought. Six Square is designed to really bring into focus and uplift the Black culture in East Austin. So we've always been about economic development and education, promoting and supporting Black creatives and entrepreneurs. But our mission changed during the pandemic, and it became to help with food insufficiency and rent and medicine, to be able to stand in the gap for all the gigs that were lost as a result of festivals being canceled.
During COVID, I transitioned from being the breadwinner to being a stay-at-home dad and home educator of Sarai, she's 6 years old, and Sebastian, he's 4. So it transitioned where I would stay home full-time and I would take care of the kids. And at first I was like, oh, I can do this because I help around anyway. But it was a lot more than that. It gave me appreciation for how much my wife did that I had no idea. But there was a lot of positives. I got to spend, even now, I'm spending time with my kids that I'll never have again. And seeing them to grow and develop and to be able to impart into their character is just, it's amazing.
I became a mom in March of 2020. My son Liam was born 2 days before we went into lockdown. It didn't take long for me to start feeling pretty depressed and realizing that what I knew as community was pretty much gone. We thought we were going to have a bunch of people around, coming over, bringing us food, coming over for play dates. I remember just feeling this despair of, I can't do this, what am I gonna do? This panic set in, and worry about how I had just brought a child into the world during this pandemic.
I didn't know when it was gonna be safe again for me to acquire a job because I am immunocompromised. And so I started creating art for other musicians. During the pandemic, what I've learned is that I can actually survive on just my creativity.
My professional work is event production and audio engineering, so my work is based on live events. And when it all came to a halt, a lot of the unknown was kind of weighing heavily on my mind and my partner's mind. What I ended up doing was sort of relearning how to exist in a creative space. I relearned how to collaborate, relearned how to finish a work, and relearn how to share it.
Sometimes you don't want to think about anything at all. Other times it just helps you focus on things that you couldn't quite understand before. This past year we've really gone outside a lot. Hiking, and especially biking, has been one of our favorite things.
During the pandemic, I realized how much the social dancing aspect of swing dancing meant to me. It's a partner dance. You learn and you go dance with people. I'm practicing solo jazz because I believe it's going to make me a better swing dancer overall. When the pandemic first hit, people started to put up online contents, and that's where I learned a lot of my solo jazz from.
I'm Catherine Reddick, and I'm 10 years old. In the past year, me and my dad have been building Legos that are bigger than we usually have done. We've built Big Ben, Taj Mahal, the rocket, the double-decker, the Empire State Building.
I like seeing how things work. Gosh, I like solving problems. So for me, during the pandemic, I decided to pick up lockpicking. Basically, I wanted to know more about how the pieces move, right? When you put that key in and you turn it, what moves in there, what changes? And also, you know, when you're watching TV at night, if I'm holding a lock and a lockpick, I'm not holding a spoon and ice cream.
I serve as imam for the North Austin Muslim Community Center. We have temperature checks. Also, people are to wear their face coverings. The other activation, if you will, was the social media presence. In the evening time, we broadcast the message which comes after the prayer. I just have my handy tripod, and then I go to Facebook Live. I look at the comments that people put on Facebook about it, and people that I don't even know who they are or where they're from, they're giving words of appreciation. So it was very moving to see that kind of a response.
I think it's just given us a little bit more perspective about what is really important for the weekends, how we spend time together as a family, and maybe some of the things that we did before weren't quite as important.
Well, like this pandemic and stuff, it's not really anything that's like happy anymore. But I actually really think that if you do like some kind of like a project like a Lego or another project, something that you enjoy doing with your family, I just think it's really fun just to spend quality time with somebody that you really love.
His birthday is coming up in a few days, and it will be pretty much a year to the day that the pandemic started. He has learned how to feed himself, has learned to crawl, he's almost walking. He's learned that he has family that loves him.
If something is negatively affecting your life, you can take the steps necessary to change it and improve it, and there's always going to be somebody that's going through something worse out there, and that doesn't mean that your struggles aren't valid. So learning that has been huge for me.
It's really helped me feel like part of my own neighborhood.
People send me notes saying, "Thank you so much for doing that. I came by and looked at it and I didn't realize how much I needed to do that." And that's kind of why I did it.
More than 500,000 people shared their personal reflections on race with the Race Card Project. Listen to a few of these backstories.
We're not all strong Black women. What bothered me so much about the popular phrase, strong Black woman, was it left out considerate, reflective, deliberate, and patient. Who I am is not just a strong Black woman frowning and forging through life like a checklist. It's not my duty to feign strength or self-righteousness, but to turn my experiences into empathy.
He's my dad, not the gardener. I went back to school as an adult, and a classmate happened to be looking over my shoulder at a picture on my computer. It was a picture of the house where I grew up with my dad out front pulling weeds, and she squinted at the picture and she said, "And was that your gardener?" My dad probably would have laughed and said yes, because he did do most of the gardening at our house. But I was not able to laugh off that, and I've never been able to laugh off the assumptions people make about who my dad is to me. So even if it makes someone else uncomfortable to say, he's my dad, not the gardener, I can live with their discomfort, but I can't live with the idea of the guy in the picture being thought of as something other than my dad.
I am not an exotic creature. Just walking out in the world, I always felt like I was being observed differently than other people because of my ambiguous appearance. Before people would even ask my name, they would say, "What are you? What's your ethnicity? Where are you from?" When I was just simply walking down the street or ordering food at a restaurant or sitting in a movie theater, people would just come up to me and ask me that. And it really made me feel like I was not human. And it led to confusion about my own mixed race identity of being Japanese and Black. For me personally, I have two very strong ethnicities or cultures that are constantly telling me you need to be proud of yourself.
With kids, I'm dad, a lone thug. The thought came to me as I examined how I was treated in Pacific Grove when I didn't have the safety shield of my biracial kids and my European wife. I had noticed that walking around Pacific Grove, I was treated one way when I had the comfort of my wife and kids with me. But during the summers, my wife and kids would go to Germany for approximately 6 to 8 weeks. When I was alone walking around Pacific Grove, just going to certain stores or different places around, I was treated very differently when I was by myself. People just sort of were wondering, what was I doing in their neighborhood?
All right, that's all three for this category.
Okay, so judges, you can place all three. You can just place one. You can place just two because it's just a small category. It's entirely up to you guys. And then you can have a discussion on what you liked, what you didn't like.
Sorry, are we placing them in order that we like them? Sean, I'm going to be asking the smartest question in the group, so hopefully everybody's just patient with me.
Well, you guys can have a conversation about what you liked or what you didn't like, and then have a joint conversation of how you want to place them. Or you can just say, I would place this one first, this one second, this one third, and maybe everyone agrees. So if you want to just start the conversation, Anastasia.
Okay, happy to do it. I would place the farming first, the not actually not in this, they appear in this order, but that's not why I'm placing this way. Based on my feedback and what I think about them, farming first, the lockdown second, and race card third, and I can explain why I feel that way. Can
Oh,
we
no.
minimize the screen? I'm having a hard time finding where my notes went.
You want me to stop sharing?
Or minimize it. Yeah, either way, please.
Well,
I heard
actually-
somebody say, oh no, which is.
Well, for me, I feel like I would only place the race card.
Yeah.
Really?
I thought that was
Interesting.
really engaging and interesting. I thought the final pictures really emphasized and finished each piece strongly. Sometimes I think what was in bold or the largest words weren't always the most important part of what was being said, but it still was just, it stood out and was kind of the only of the three that like really kept me engaged. I felt like I don't know if I should stop talking or not, but
no.
I feel like a lack of moments, not sound sequencing were missing from the first two. I thought the lessons from lockdown, that probably could have been a really good documentary, but as one kind of shorter piece, I didn't feel like it was connected really. There were some really interesting stories in there, but put together, I didn't feel like I had a connection with anyone. It's really when like the dad was playing with his kids and you're not hearing anything. And then the lack of nat sound like really stood out from the farming to me.
I think I have to agree with Aaron.
I mean, I agree with you on the lack of sound from farming, and I put that in notes. I mean, there's so many opportunities to turn down the music and hear what appears in nature. And I felt that the music, especially at the beginning, was misplaced because what we're seeing is everything is fine other than the first shot, and the music is too forceful and it's setting the scene for not being fine. The reason why I guess I may be the only one in the group potentially that was not as engaged with the racial one. I felt it was too gimmicky. I wanted to see more faces. Why am I seeing animation of them where I want to see the people? I want to see their feelings. I want to see the face of the Asian African American woman when she says that her, she's conflicted about her identity. Their faces were, like, their pictures were, to me, often covered by the type. I don't know. Creative it is, but did it reach me? I wanted to see the people. I don't understand, and maybe I'm too old and too traditional, but I don't understand the necessity of using animation in this particular piece as a storytelling tool. And I agree with you on the middle one, on the pandemic. I think it should have been pared down. I think the voices at very top before the title were like, I'm wait a second, what is the story about? So I agree with you on all that, but that's where I felt on that's where my huge, I guess, our chasm in the evaluation of the piece about race.
I think go ahead.
I think your points are valid. Here's where I'm standing with Aaron. Not that I'm agreeing with Aaron or disagreeing with you, and that is, if you look at my notes, the first two pieces are kind of a disaster technically. Editing is the most technical part of what we do. There are missed opportunities left and right, from jump cuts, holy smokes, to audio popping, to a lack of transition. There are so many opportunities, even if you don't want to use a dissolve, which thank God I didn't see many, that they didn't take opportunities for natural sound to transition me from one person to the other in the first one. None. So this is an editing contest. And so while the storytelling, I think in all three of them were fine, I think the technical aspects in the first two were lacking compared to the third one. While is non-traditional, which I don't know if I like that part, but the way they used the motion graphics were seamless. They were thought through in the sense of eye movement. And I'm going to go back to a John Hychek moment, and is whoever put that together understands the way, the psychology of the eye. What every shot led to the next one with the motion graphics. So the editing was seamless, and while it may not have been great in the sense of seeing who the people were to the end of each, it did capture a little bit about what's this person really look like. So there was the build up to the end on each one of those in the storytelling. The other two stories for me, I can give the bottom one a first place. I personally, just because, I mean, some of the music was bad choices. They chose it over natural sound. They, for God's sakes, a man was playing a bass guitar and I couldn't hear it. That's a no-no. So that's just me. If it comes down to technique, if it comes down to technique, the bottom one editing wise was flawless. The other two, they missed so many some basic opportunities that I just can't award them. That's me.
I agree with you. I mean, the dancing of the man who's learning how to dance. I'm like, what is he dancing to? Yeah, and the kids, and yeah, I hear you on that.
Yeah, so my thoughts on the race card, it was innovative, it was different. Wasn't a really big fan of the voices. I couldn't tell if that was actually their voices or if they may have had someone in their office kind of record these voices, these quotes from these individuals. So it's kind of drawn back from that of trying to figure out if the voice actually matched the person. So I agree with Anastasia on that, of kind of the confusion of not really being able to see that. But as far as the editing and things like that, I thought that it was more compelling than the rest. The others just missed a lot of opportunities. For example, the first one had, I think, the same exact track throughout the entire story, and it was just dragging on, and I wanted to hear more of, more gnats and stuff, basically what everyone is saying I agree with. But yeah, I think race card is where my vote is on this one.
I'm going to speak last on the next one, everyone, just FYI. Learning my lessons here with round one.
No, I love this stuff. I'm curious. I hate to do guesswork, but I'm wondering if the point of how they did that was to focus on the words and less on how a person looks or appears. And then I found it powerful to then see the person at the end, but I'm guessing a little bit on their You
know what rang true to me on that was, how many times have we been called a cameraman? And I've always replied with, I'm a man with a camera. The camera does not define me. Neither does my race. Sure, there's some, that's why I think that really appealed to me, because I'm a dad, I'm a Christian, I'm a dog owner, I'm a husband. Sometimes I'm a fool. Okay, I'm a fool a lot, but one thing doesn't define me. And I think that's what touched me about that more than anything. Yeah, I think exactly what you're saying there, Aaron. Sorry.
Oh, how are you guys going to come to some kind of agreement here?
I don't know. I mean, do we have to have a first, second, and third? Let's start with that. Do we have to?
No, you don't have to have a first, second, third. You can place a third. You can place a second. It's entirely up to you.
Well,
can we vote like in a democracy?
Sure. Do we do that?
Maybe
in the
I'll
chat?
abstain on the count of liking smarts.
I think you vote the way you want to vote. That's don't.
I mean, I mean, we've got to have some kind of results.
Oh, gotcha.
Some kind of results. I mean, if you're really like, I'm this, that, we can like table this and make the conversation a bit later as you watch more entries, but it's entirely up to you. We could do just a third, we could do just a second, we could say none of these are any good. It's entirely up to you as the judges.
Well, if I have
to want to do first, second, third, I don't know. Like, what my question to you is weighting. What is that going to do? I mean,
well, I think if we see
I don't know how that weighs into our.
if we see other other stories, I think that may deter the way we think on this story, on these stories, which I don't have anything really positive to say about the first two to begin with. So I don't know if that would deter me on those at all. So, I mean, was it a solid effort? Yes. I mean, for me, if I have to rank anything, I would rank the last one that we watched, the race card, as a number one. And I don't even know if I can honestly give either of the other. I saw a jump cut on little Catherine there, a jump cut. That is not editing. That I don't even know how that got to us. So I just don't. I can't even give that an honorable mention. Maybe the first one an honorable mention, but
Wait, aren't these students?
Doesn't matter. A jump cut's a jump cut.
No,
my
these aren't
17-year-old
students. These are
doesn't.
professionals.
Yeah, my 17-year-old doesn't do jump cuts.
I'm guessing based on the 5 minutes that I've known you, probably doesn't. No.
Poor kid.
No, man. Have you, counseling?
No,
But we can talk
I'll
offline
tell you,
about
I
that.
learned most of what I know from Sean, so I'll blame him.
Sean, I think you owe the kid counseling.
Yes, no.
Possibly.
So no, I mean, I like the other two. They were nice. Which and when I was at Wave 3, that was an insult to somebody. Oh, that was nice. But I don't. So the reason I say race card is number one. Again, it was innovative. But while I didn't care for the format, I'm not going to knock the format. It was engaging. And the other two, I just wanted things to happen and nothing happened. Nothing. And I wasn't connected. I wasn't connected to the other two at all until the very end when that one guy said, "I'm picking locks." I didn't connect with any of those people.
Yeah, that guy stood out.
He should have been the lead. And in the second piece, if you want to get, I even wrote it. They should have compared and contrasted people. And I don't know why that girl was dancing in the beginning. It was never said that she was a dancer, so it was weird.
Right.
So they could have compared with the contrasting thing. You start with the locksmith, maybe go to Dad, and then maybe go to the little Catherine. Really, that's all they needed. I don't think they needed any of the other three, anyone else. And just to show how different they are from race, from profession to lifestyle. But they didn't do that. They just kind of, we'll just put this all in an order. And if you go back to television news, the very first thing you lead with your best video or your best audio. Well, the video wasn't great. So the best audio is the dude picking locks. So, and it was buried at the bottom end of it.
Yeah.
So that's why that's another reason I don't care for number two. Number one, it just didn't hit home with me. It just didn't.
Well, I don't know. I liked it. I don't know if it's because I'm in Texas and I lived through this nonsense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I cover some of these issues of growing food, right? And so the way that they put it together, to me, even though they've missed lots of NAT opportunities and they put, one track underneath and all of those technical things are very much there story wise. And I know you've mentioned this is a technical test, but I think story and editing is important, right? Like it has to make sense the way you put it together. It was compelling sound. I mean, I liked how they went out of the way of weaving the stories in and out. I think the order worked for me. I think the diversity worked for me. So I connected with these people and I felt their pain. So I really liked how they picked sound. Again, caveats, Nats, music, missed opportunities there. Yes, I would put them second if we were to rank them, and I will go with you since you guys, I see your point, Anthony, on the last one. I see it. If we look at it as plainly as you describe it, then okay, it's number one then.
Yeah, and mind you,
I think it's number one.
I didn't like
Aaron
it.
I didn't like it. You're very, very clear. I didn't like it either. But if we're right, but
yeah,
Sean, we need to talk.
So
offline
Cody,
and
so
influence
Cody and
people.
Aaron, what are your thoughts on the third story as your first place.
I like race card 1 and then Texas Freeze 2.
I can live with that.
Yeah, I can live with that, I suppose, as well. Yeah, but definitely firmly with race card number 1.
Okay, so race cards number 1, Texas Freeze is number 2, and then what about the lessons from it? We're not gonna nothing. Okay, so we're just having a first and second. Outstanding. We got our first